Then you will be able to see a demonstration on the AWS Management Console to get an idea on how I go along and how will I take every step, and I will show that to you. So that is going to be the flow for today. Again, after 45 minutes, we'll have FAQ. But definitely, if you want to point something out in the middle, if you think something is out, you can put it in the chat section. Maybe Venkat can help me with that, or probably if required, you can just go to the mic and you can speak it out as well. If you have a doubt, once I give you time for the queries. So let's dive in. Let's start with it. Let's talk about the global infrastructure. So for few of you have actually attended my previous demonstration, previous webinar. So you might be aware. We have talked about what is AWS. We talked about what is cloud computing exactly. So in a nutshell, what is cloud computing? It is just using someone else's computer to do your job. That means simply sitting at your home or simply sitting at any part of this world, you can just provision a server, or you can deploy an application, any kind of application in any part of the world without any kind of issue. So you can basically provision a server in any part of this world. Now when I say that you can provision in any part of the world, what do I mean by that? So these providers like AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure will give us their infrastructure, or will give us the infra, so that we can actually develop, or we can put our applications on their resources, on their data centers. So they will take care of the data centers. We have to just go in and provision our resources inside that. That means they will provide us the entire infrastructure. I have to just use it, and I will pay for it on a pay as you go model. So today's whatever popular websites that you take a look at, like Netflix is there, Hotstar is there, then your gaming applications are there, like Clash of Clans is there, PUBG is there. Everybody actually follows along that, or everybody uses some kind of cloud. They may have their own cloud setup, they may using a public cloud provider for the same, but anybody actually uses that only nowadays, because this thing like that is AWS, GCP, or Azure give you unlimited capacity. That means they will give you as much hardware as you want. You just have to take care of the cost, and you have to pay for it on a pay as you go basis. So nothing has to be invested upfront. You have to pay for it at the end of the month. You will get a bill at the end of the month. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually talk about how AWS does it. So first component inside that is a data center. What's a data center? A data center is nothing but the actual building in which your servers reside. So as I told you that AWS will take care of this for us. So AWS will actually provision the data centers for us. I have the choice of putting my data into those data centers. Now let's take a quick look at the terminology. I'm not going to take a lot about the slides. There's just a couple of slides. Then we'll move to the demonstration of the same as well. So first of all, we have something called as data centers. Data centers are nothing but the securely designed locations. They are nothing but location where your actual physical data will reside. That means I will basically store my data inside a data center only, and a data center will be in any part of this world. A data center typically has 50,000 to 80,000 physical servers. So it's basically a rack, a building full of servers racked on each other, and you are storing your data in that data center. All data centers are online. That means all of the data centers are completely online. There is no cold data center. What do I mean by that? They are always on, and they will always be storing data in it. So again, custom network equipment. So AWS is multi ODM sourced and Amazon custom network protocol stack. Again, there is no requirement of you knowing about what hardware they use at the backend, but that is just for some information about it. Now we come across the concept of a region. So data center is the actual area in which your data will be stored. But then what is the AWS region? Region is nothing but the name of the geographical area. So your region is what? So let's take an example. As I told you, basically sitting here, I can provision a website or a web server in any part of this entire world. So simply put, I can just provision a website or a web server in, let's say, North California, North Virginia, then UK, Europe, any part of the world in which AWS has a data center, which I can put my data in. Again, why will I choose any other region? Because my end users may be near that region, so that they get less latency, I will actually provision a server in that particular region. So each region is made up of two or more availability zones. That means in order to call a region as a region, it should at least have two availability zones. What's an availability zone? It's nothing but a group of data centers or a cluster of data centers. So we have different kinds of regions in the entire world. We have Hong Kong, we have Mumbai, we have Singapore. You as a customer or you as an AWS developer, you have a choice of choosing any of the region that you go with. So simply put, you will have a region. Inside that region, I'll have at least two availability zones to begin with. Why two? If one fails, can I have the second as a backup? Can I put my data in the second availability zone or the second data center as a backup? Yes, definitely you can do that. You can put your data in a different availability zone. AWS provides you this ability. That is why they have this terminology. So that is why they have said that each region will at least have two availability zones to begin with. AWS has totally 24 regions worldwide. So AWS has actually 24 regions. So you have 24 choices where you can put your data in. Inside that also you can choose which availability zone you want to store your data in. Again, that is a choice. That means you, depending on the service that we are going to learn or depending on the service that we're going to take a look at, it will nothing but be the choice in which you can put your data in. As a developer, you have the choice, or as a architect, what choice you have, you can enable and control data replication across regions. That means you can copy your data across multiple regions as well. And the communication between regions uses AWS backbone network connection infrastructure. So how does this work? Basically, in a very simple or in a very layman format, two availability zones will have the communication over the private network, whereas two regions will have the communication over the public internet. So they will communicate over the public internet, whereas two data centers or two availability zones will communicate over the private network. So these are the thing, but the current regions, that means we have currently 24 as the number of regions. I'll show you this in the console as well. So total number of regions, there are nothing but 24 ones, and there are new ones coming soon as well. Pretty much few of these in the slide are available right now as well. That means they are actually up and ready. I will talk about that as well. So what's an availability zone? Availability zone is nothing but a data center or a group of data centers. That means it may be buildings side by side each other. They actually form to become an availability zone. That is nothing but a group or a cluster of data centers. So each availability zone will be made up of one or more data centers. They are designed for fault isolation. What do I mean by fault isolation? If one crashes because of any kind of power or network failure, if you have copied the data in the second availability zone, you can still access that. That is why you at least have two availability zones inside a single region. They are interconnected with other high availability zones using high speed private links. As told, the communication between two availability zones will be over a private link, whereas communication between two regions like Mumbai, Hong Kong, Singapore, something like that, will actually go over the public internet. So you as a customer, what, or you as an AWS developer, what choice you have? You can actually choose the availability zones that you want to go with. So I can say that I want to go with this specific availability zone inside this region. So for Mumbai, I can specify which availability zone I want to put my data in. Again, when we move to demonstration of the simple VM or simple virtual machine, I'll be able to show you this as well. AWS says that AWS recommends replicating your data across availability zones for resiliency. That means copy your data across multiple availability zones so that you have a resilient architecture. That means you're not dependent on a single availability zone. Even if that availability zone goes down, you can still retrieve data from a different availability zone as well. So that's pretty much on the concept. Again, to summarize this in a nutshell, every region inside this world, that is, and every AWS region will at least consist of two availability zones to begin with. Availability zone is nothing but a data center or a cluster or a group of data centers building side by side each other, and two availability zones will be far from each other. That means two availability zones will be like 60 or 70 kilometers far from each other, and every region will at least have two AZs to begin with. Now I will move to the console. I'll show you the exact thing as well. But before that, there is one more component that we have to discuss called as edge locations. So now what is an edge location? To understand the concept of an edge location, you need to understand the concept of why YouTube runs very fast. So you might have observed that YouTube actually runs very fast compared to other websites. I also asked this last time. Someone pointed out that there is something called as a CDN or a content delivery network, which will nothing but distribute the data. So CDN does what? CDN nothing but distributes the data across multiple data centers or small data centers. So whenever you're watching YouTube, what is happening is the data is not coming from the origin server, but rather than that, it is coming from a server which is nearer to you, or technically nearest to you. That means if you're actually in Mumbai, I'm in Mumbai in India, and I'm having my data, actually this data is stored in North Virginia. I'm accessing the data from North Virginia, or my end users are accessing the data from North Virginia who are based in Mumbai. So if they get it from North Virginia, obviously there will be some latency while they're accessing the data. That means there will be some lateness of the packets because the origin is very far. So for that, what you can do is you can have a edge location, or you can have a CDN. What does a CDN do, or what is a CDN? CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. Now in real world, what is an example of this? So Cloudflare is an example of this that you might have heard about. Even Google CDN is YouTube, Google Google's own CDN service as well, which will nothing but copy your data to small data centers across the entire world. That means these are nothing but called as edge locations. Edge location is what? It is nothing but the small data center in AWS which will store your edge locations. Is the edge location as big as your that means is the edge location as large as your availability zone? No, availability zone is a different concept. Regions availability zones will be separate, edge locations will be separate, and they are just used to store this cached content. So on YouTube, probably static content like videos, images, all of that content is there. So basically an edge location is used to store that. So to give you an example on this, whenever I'm accessing the data, or whenever let's say I am the end user, I'm watching a video, but the video is or video is stored in the origin server of North Virginia. So video is stored somewhere there. Now it's in America, it's actually far from my location. I might get latency while accessing that. So for that, what I can do is basically I can have a CDN service, or the AWS developer will have a CDN service called as CloudFront in AWS, which will do what? This will nothing but copy your data across all of the edge locations. So next time when I'm watching the data is coming to me from New Delhi or Chennai, which is in India itself. So data will be accessed faster rather than the data coming from the North Virginia. So edge location is the third component inside the infrastructure. That means the first two components are what? They are nothing but regions. Region is a geographical area, probably like Mumbai. Inside that, you currently have three availability zones. So currently Mumbai has three AZs to begin with. I will show that to you on the screen as well. And your edge locations are what? They are nothing but small data centers, which will have a copy of your data from the availability zone. That means the copy of the data will be stored across all of the edge locations in the entire world. So wherever your users are there, let your users be everywhere, anywhere in the world, they will be able to access the data quickly via the edge location. That's something that's in a nutshell about AWS, the infrastructure. Again, AWS has currently 114 points of presence, that is 103 edge locations and 11 regional edge caches. They are nothing but small data centers just used to store the cached content or the static content. So because of these features, what are the facilities or what are the benefits that I get with AWS? What are the benefits? What are the facilities that I get with AWS? First of all, my infra is elastic and scalable. That means what? What do I mean by scalable? Scalable means ability to accommodate the growth. You can grow in any size. Why? Because you can have as much hardware. Why? Because your data center or your AWS, any kind of data center provider or AWS is going to give you this hardware. That means, just to give you a simple example, if you have heard about Flipkart's first big billion day, they badly crashed. They were not able to handle that much load on their servers. Why? Because they did not have an estimate on how many people actually came on their website. So with Amazon.com, with today's whatever you happen today, so today whatever gaming applications are there, whatever Netflix is there, whatever other application is there, their sales never fail. E-commerce application sales do not fail today. Why? Because they have actually started using cloud, or they use someone else's data center to handle this. So that here what happens, the new hardware or the additional hardware that you need to handle the load is basically provisioned by AWS itself, so you need not worry about it. So AWS will give you how much ever hardware that you want. That is called as scalable. Second thing is elastic. Elasticity means what? Whenever not required, Why keep these extra servers running? You can just terminate them off as well. So AWS, depending on the current load, it can just delete those additional servers as well, so that you save money and you come back to your original configuration. In on premises it is difficult. Why? Because if when you purchase a server on premises, you have to pay for it continuously. There is no as such saving there. But with the elasticity or scalability feature of the cloud, whenever you don't want that infra, you can AWS will automatically terminate them off, so that you save money by going to back to your normal infrastructure. That is nothing but the feature of cloud. So it will let you make your application elastic and scalable to handle additional load. At the same time, whenever load is not there, it will come to the original configuration to save money as well. Then fault tolerant, that means your application can be put in multiple availability zones. What is the advantage of that? Even if one data center fails, your application will be able to get data from the second availability zone as well. That means your application will not go down, and you'll not have to worry about even if one of the availability zone goes down. Then high availability, so this translates to what? This translates to nothing but high availability. That means you'll get more performance, you get better performance. So because of this infra, you can have a highly available application. What do I mean by that? You'll get as less downtime for your application as possible. So whatever you're hosting on the cloud, any kind of server, maybe a web server, maybe a website, any kind of application server, a database, all of that can remain highly available because of this global infra that we have learned about. So now I'll quickly move to the console. I will show you how can we see this on the screen as well. So now to show you the demonstration of the same, I will just open up a new window and I will just show you the infrastructure.aws website. The same things that we have learned, basically you will be able to see the same thing on the screen as well. That is infrastructure.aws. This is a nice visual website which will show you the same concepts that we have learned right now. It will just show that to you in a visual format. You can just simply click on see how we do it. So you can see all of the regions available in the entire world. That means you can just go through the all of the regions that you have. So currently, let's say I want to put my data in the Mumbai region. I can just select Mumbai here. Then I can do what? I can specify. I can actually see here that we have 3 availability zones inside Mumbai. Then you can click on availability zones here. You can read more about it as well. So information about availability zones, information about data centers is available here. Currently, we have 76 availability zones spread across the entire world in nothing but 24 regions. North Virginia being the oldest, it has 6 availability zones inside that. Now, when it comes to edge locations or regional edge caches, you can just click on points of presence here to know more about edge locations as well. So whatever we've learned, you will be able to get that information here. The same thing, that is nothing but a small data center which is just used to store the cached content or static content, that is called as points of presence in the AWS cloud. So your cloud actually consists of data centers. These data centers nothing but are called as availability zones. Availability zones will fall inside a region, and you as a customer or you as a developer have a choice of choosing the region or the availability zone that you want to go. So now if I just take a look at the global infra, this is what we can see it visually. So you'll have a region. Inside that there will be availability zones, at least 2 to begin with. There might be more than 2 as well. Then you'll have data centers inside it. Again, these data centers are nothing but cluster of buildings. If they come together to form one availability zone, 2 availability zones will be far from each other. That means they will be at a length of 60 or 70 kilometers away from each other. And if you want to serve any kind of streaming platform like probably Netflix, probably Hotstar, any kind of thing like that, where you have static content. Similarly, if you have an e-commerce website in which you have some static content as well, you also have dynamic content. You can use edge locations to efficiently serve the static content, so that users across the entire world of your application are able to access the data quickly with less latency. That is called as points of presence. Now we'll actually move to the console. We'll actually see on how do we set up a simple VM in the AWS cloud. So what's the use of AWS cloud? To set up your servers or to create your servers in the AWS cloud or to host your applications there. So we'll take a quick look at how to host a simple Apache application on the AWS cloud. For
Uh,
that, I'll actually, yeah,
Pranav, pause it. Can we ask questions right now, or it is after 45 minutes we can check on the questions which we have?
no, sure, you can. We can have a couple of questions here if they are referring to my topic right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it is pertaining to discussion, we will have those doubts now. Rest of the doubts about the course details or something like that, we'll take
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the end.
Sure. Okay. You talked about edge nodes. Edge nodes
Correct.
contain static data.
Your actually voice is breaking.
Okay.
You're actually I am not able to hear you clearly.
Okay. You're able to hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay. You talked about edge nodes, and edge nodes are containing static data.
correct.
Okay. So what about suppose for example a banking, for example banking sector.
Yeah,
A banking sector when it moves to my cloud, it will have a region, it will have an availability zone and so on. But
yeah,
a global bank will have regions across the world, right?
correct,
So they use a CDN, correct?
correct.
And what about edge locations there? Because
Okay,
my
so
banking will not have static data, right? It will
correct,
be dynamic data.
correct.
How
So
does
you can
edge
set,
network
yeah,
works there? Yeah.
yeah. So basically, you can set up something called as a TTL or time to leave. That means what? You can definitely store dynamic content in a CDN or a edge location as well. But then you have to set up something called as a TTL or time to leave. That means what? Basically, after that time or after the expiry of the time, the server will act, that means it will automatically CDN will do what? It will go to the edge availability zone. Whatever new copy of the data is there, it will pick it up and store it across all of the edge locations. That means along with the static content, you can use edge locations for dynamic content as well using the TTL property.
Okay. Okay. It answers my question. Okay.
Yeah,
I have one more question to on the topic which you have covered so far.
sure, sure,
You spoke about data backup and data resilience.
right,
So in data backup, we discussed that it should be a factor of two, minimum factor of two, which will on the availability zone, which will be
hmm,
helpful. If one goes down, one can be a backup, used as a backup.
correct.
What about region? Does region backup is also available?
That means actually if you are actually a global brand and if you actually want to uh, think about in terms of disaster recovery, so in
Yeah.
that case you actually have to create our infra across two different regions and connect them via some service called as route 53. That means that's a DNS service. You can actually connect to the regions along with that, and then you can have the second region as a backup as well.
Okay. So it is Route 53.
Yeah, it's a DNS service which will nothing but connect both of the regions together if you want to, if you actually want to have one region as a backup.
Okay. Will you be showing that? Will you be showing that, Pranav?
In the course, definitely I'll be showing that, not
Okay.
right now because
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
will,
yeah. That's fine.
yeah. In
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
course that is already covered, that means I'll be talking about how does Route 53 do it as well.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh,
Yeah.
Pranav, Ramesh here.
Sure, Ramesh. Yeah,
So it just related to the question I think one of our member is asked. So there is a concept
correct.
on region cache also, right?
I do not get your question. Regional edge cache. You're
Yeah,
talking about it. Yeah. So
yeah.
there are two kinds
So
of
what?
points of presence. So basically, one is the edge location that we have discussed, that is for frequently accessed content. Now, if
Yeah,
data, if the same content is there, it is not frequently accessed, it will automatically, AWS will automatically put it in the regional edge cache. It is also a small data center only, but if it is infrequently accessed, that is not that much popular content, AWS will automatically put it in a regional edge cache.
So what will be the case like in case if somebody play with the dynamic data, like if somebody post make a frequent update to the customer details, so will
Yeah.
it go to the original region, or it will go to the region cache, or where it will
So
go
it
for?
will be, yeah, so it will be dependent on the TTL that you have specified. That means if you're distributing dynamic data, you have to ensure that you're configuring a proper time to leave, so that after that time to leave, the actual the refresh happens of the edge location. If you don't set it up, if you don't set it up properly, then it will always get data from the edge location. You might get stale data as well. To ensure that you always get updated data, set up a time to leave correctly according to your application.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So now, guys, we'll just see a demonstration of how easy it is to set up a server on the AWS cloud. That means how to set up a simple Apache server on the AWS cloud. So for that, what I'll do, I'll actually log into my account. Rest of the queries will take it at the end. So I'm going to show you on how to set up a VM or how to set up an EC2 instance in the AWS cloud. What is EC2? EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. That is nothing but a simple virtual machine in the AWS cloud. Just like using a normal computer, you can just use a computer or you can use a machine in the AWS data center as well. So I'll be just doing that again. Here, what choice you have, you can choice have with the region. What you see right now is the AWS management console. That means in the course you'll be given access to the account. It will have the you will be able to do the same steps like I'm performing, and I'll be talking about the best practices that you have to do with this as well. So now the first thing that you note here is the region. That means what region I have to go in and provision the resources. Again, that will depend on where your customers lie. That means where are your exact customers? Based on that, we'll have the region. So I can say that I want to go with Mumbai. You can go with any of the regions. Whatever infra that we have discussed up till now, these are the choices of regions that you will make. So now let me just go in with Mumbai for now. I can just go with North Virginia as well. So currently we're just going to go set up a simple server. So North Virginia will be fine for me. But in real life, depending on where your end users are located, what is the costing for the services that you're going to use, based on that, based on each and everything, the choice of the region will come into picture. So now how to set up a simple EC2 or how to set up a EC2 instance in the AWS cloud, we'll take a quick look at that. So for that, I'll just go to services, I'll go to EC2. So let me just quickly go to EC2. So once on the EC2 dashboard, you'll actually be able to go in and launch the instances. Again, what's an instance? Instance is like just like a single machine or a single virtual machine that you can create. That means just like you create your VMs on the VMware or virtual box, in the same way in the cloud as well, you can actually create a VM. Remember that here you'll be creating a VM for maybe setting up your application or hosting a website or something like that as well. So let me just go in. Let me just click on launch instance to get started with it. I'll just click on launch instance here. Now, what are we going to show, or what am I exactly going to show you as a demonstration? I'm going to show you on how to set up a EC2 instance, that is Elastic Compute Cloud. I'm going to show you how to set up an EC2 instance, which is of Linux uh, operating system, and it will have Apache on top of it. So you might have heard about it. Apache web server is a famous web server for Linux. We're going to set that up on our EC2 instance. So we come across the first step, first choice. What is that? AMI. AMI is nothing but a template for your instance. What is a template? It will nothing but contain the operating system, the application server, any kind of applications. You can just think of it as your C drive. So basically, whatever is in your C drive, if I just call it as an image, or if I just everything, I can think of this as a template that can be called as a template. Now, in real life, where have you seen this? If you've actually launched VMware or VirtualBox, you might have observed that the operating system is stored in the ISO image, but it is actually created out of a VMDK file. That VMDK file is actually what? It is nothing but similar to your AMI. So AMI is nothing but template which will contain the operating system and all of the details, out of which will actually launch your EC2 instance. So let me just, now what are the different choices when it comes to AMIs that AWS provides? AWS provides us Windows and Linux based AMIs. That means you can go in with Windows and Linux based distributions. Why no Mac? Because Mac does not let put their own hardware on different data centers. That is why there is no Mac here. But you can go with most of the popular Linux based distributions like Ubuntu, SUSE, Fedora, or even Windows distributions as well. So currently what we are going to start with, since I'm going to show you how to set up simple Apache server on Linux based AMI, I'm going to go with Amazon Linux 2 AMI. Let me just click on select here. So operating system we have selected on the first step. Now we come across the instance type, that is the configuration. So basically when we talk about the configuration, what is the configuration that we're going to go with? Can I choose any kind of RAM or can I choose any kind of capacity that I have for my instances? No, you cannot choose any random configuration. You have to go with one of the ones that AWS has provided. So depending on the requirement, what kind of server you want to set up, AWS has given us lot of different choices of families. That means you have general purpose, which is a mix of compute and all of that stuff, which is a nice mix of compute capacity and all of that stuff. Then you have different types of instances, different categories like compute optimized, you have memory optimized. One real life example I can give you. Now in our environment we actually do rendering and all of that stuff a lot. That for that I need a very powerful server. So what we do in our production load, so I have provisioned it on a G4 DN X large. So what it takes, it nothing but takes the Adobe suite of softwares, that is your Photoshop and all of that stuff, rendering softwares, whatever their Audition and stuff like that. I am running it on a GPU based instance. That means according to your requirement, you can go for the instance. It has the different capabilities. That's in a nutshell about this thing. Again, remember that this will be charged on a per hour basis. So whatever instance type that you're going with, based on its configuration, you'll have to pay for it on a per hour basis. So now I'm going to go with T2 Micro, which is under the free tier. So basically AWS has something called as a free tier, which is few services for free for the first 12 months. Under that, we have T2 Micro as one with 1 core CPU and 1 GB of memory. Let me just click on that. Let me just click on next, configure instance details. Now we come across the instance details as the networking concept. So currently I'm going to create one instance only, but for a company like Netflix, they may need to create hundreds of instances at one go. So they may need a powerful network for that. They may need more they may need more instances to be created at one go. So in that case, they will go with a larger number. Currently, since I'm just going to show you a demonstration, I'm going to go with one as the number of instances only. Then what you need to know right now at this stage is the network. So basically I'm going to put it in the default network only, and the subnet will be what, which availability zone I want to choose. So based on our discussion, we have talked about regions and we talked about availability zones. Here you can see this in the demonstration. That means I have the choice of which availability zone I want to go with. So I can probably go in with US East 1A, US East 1C, something like that as well. Currently, let me just go in with US East 1A, one of the data centers inside North Virginia. Now, do I need a public IP for this machine? So basically, if you are going to host a website on this, how will people come to that website? They will be able to commit via its public IP only. So I need to have a public IP for my machine. That is why I will make sure that I have this subnet setting as enable. Rest of the settings at this stage you don't need to know. That means as we go along in the course, this will be like building blocks. That means as we go along, we learn each service step by step. We'll be discussing on each of the rest of the options. Currently, I'll just simply click on next, add storage. Now, as you might have learned or as you might have seen that every computer in this world will have some kind of storage. A Linux based machine will require 8 GB of hard disk to begin with, whereas the Windows will require 30 GB to begin with. So I'm going to go with, say here 8 has been provisioned for us. That is the root volume. What's the root volume? It's nothing but a hard disk on which data will be stored. Again, what do I mean by root volume? Your operating system data, your all of that data will be stored in this root volume for you. Now I can click on next add tags. Let me just go in with the default, whatever it is there. Let me click on next add tags. I'm going to add a tag. Tag is what? Tag is nothing but the identifier for your instance. That means it is just like an identifier, just like a key value pair. Let me add a tag. Let me give the key as name. Now, what will be the value or what will you add as a tag? Maybe your machine belongs to the marketing department. You'll add a tag as department and probably value as marketing. You can add additional tags as well. You can add as many tags as you want. Maybe I'm sharing an AWS account with hundreds and thousands of people. So how do I identify my instances? Maybe I can give my name to it. I can say that this belongs to Pranav. So I'll just put in my name here. Then I can click on next configure security group. Again, remember that this is just key value pairs for your instances, just to identify them. I can do what? I can click on next configure security group. Now I can say what is a security group. So basically your machine, if you're coming back from an IT environment, you might know that your machine basically has 65536 ports inside that. Again, here I'm talking about the software ports, not the visible USB hardware ports. The software ports, whatever we have, you can actually used for communication via the services. Now for a website or a web server, normally you will be using the HTTP and HTTPS port. So I will actually have to on that. That means I need to ensure that those are on. Now by default, those ports are blocked for my machine. I need to go in and I need to specify whatever ports I need to open. So I will just give it this a name. I will just call it as Apache SG. Apache security group. And description will be again the same thing. The first rule that you see here is SH. Again, what do I mean by SH? Basically, this is a server which is created in the North Virginia region. That means it is provisioned in North Virginia, and sitting here, I'm just accessing that region or I'm accessing that server in North Virginia. So I can only do that via the SH protocol. Now, what is the source from where the access is going to come from? So in production purposes, what is recommended? In production, it is always recommended that you do the access only from a trusted IP. That means only connect to this server via the SSH protocol over a trusted IP address. So in production, always set up to your own IP. So AWS will go in, AWS will prefetch my IP address here so that I am able to connect to it. Only I should be able to connect to this server and not anybody else. Then I will add a rule for HTTP. So since I want everybody to access that, I will say HTTP and I will say that source should be 0000/0. That means any valid IP4 address. Similarly, ;/0 means any valid IP6 address will be able to access my instance over its public IP. Similarly, let me add a rule for HTTPS as well. Now I'll click on review and launch to launch this instance. So now I have basically reached the last step of launching the instance. Now I'm going to actually launch the instance. So for that, I'm going to click on launch here. Now, basically to connect to this instance, I need a key pair. What's a key pair? It's nothing but encrypted login information. That means to connect to your server, you require the login information. So here I'm going to go with what? I'm going to create a new key pair for that. I'm just going to create a new key pair. Again, this will nothing but contain the username and password so that I can connect to my machine. So I will just create a new key pair. Let me just call it as, let's probably say Corsac demo. You can use your previous key pairs as well. You can download new key pairs as well. Let me just click on download key pair. It will be downloaded to my machine. Then let me click on launch instance to launch it. Again, if in real life, if you lose the access to the key pair, not even AWS will keep a copy of the key pair with them. A very important point, a very niche, a very small point, but very important. That means AWS will itself also not keep a copy of the key pair with them. Why do they do that? Because for security purposes, so that nobody is able to connect to your instances unless only you should be able to connect to the instances. That is why they will not keep a copy of the key pair with them. That is nothing but your login information. Let me just click on launch instances now. Now my server will be launched. There is an error here saying that security group already exists. Remember that a security group should always be a unique name. Why did I get this error? Why should I or what went wrong? The name actually matched the name that I said earlier. So let me go to back to review screen. Let me just change the name here. So even troubleshooting is a very important part of learning or understanding the solutions architect. So as an architect, you might need to remember or you might to know on how to debug the problems as well, whatever you face. So let me change the name here. Let me just say Corsac SG. And it's a demo for Corsac. We'll probably say Corsac SG. Let me click on review and launch, and finally I'll click on launch to launch the server. I have access to this demo. I've just downloaded it. Let me click on launch instances. So server will be created for me in a nutshell. So what we have seen how to create a server. Now my demo is not ever over yet because we have not seen the actual server yet. That means we've just provisioned the server, but I have not hosted anything here. Let me do that, and then we'll take on the doubts or take on the queries. So now a server will be created for me. I already have one existing, which you can see at the top. A new server will be created for me by my name, that is Pranav. It is T2 micro, that is the instance type, that is 1 core CPU and 1 GB of memory. It is created in one A data center, 1A availability zone. Instance state is running, and status checks are what? Nothing but they are nothing but checks by AWS. Just think of it like a computer. A computer does not start immediately. It is checked by the operating system to see whether everything is correct or not, and then your server or your computer gets booted. In the real world or in AWS world as well, the same happens. When you create a new server, basically whatever is there in the AMI actually gets launched. It may take some time. AWS checks that everything is ready, and then it actually makes the 2x2 checks available here. Once you get to see the 2x2 checks, you get a guarantee that we can actually connect to the server.
Yeah, hi Pranav, Arun here.
Yeah,
Just meanwhile, just one question. So while
sure.
creating a virtual machine, like we have seen, like we need to select that which availability zone we want to create this instance. But
Correct.
yeah, regarding the reason, like not Virginia reason, like during that creation of account, like we need to choose like I'm creating this account for this reason. Like first we need to select reasons, right? So I didn't see that options where we specify the reason. Okay, I want to
Yeah.
create this instance in this reason, these availability zones.
Okay. So you actually saw the option for the availability zone. I believe that is correct that you
Yes, I
might have
have
seen.
seen. Yes, I have
Yeah,
seen.
but whenever you have a new AWS account, so or whenever you have an AWS account, there will be regions for you. Now, as I told you that during the starting of the demo, basically from this point, I can choose any region in which I wanted to set up the VM. So basically, whenever you select a region from here, whatever you create inside that region or whatever you create inside that will be created in that region only for you. This means what? This server, whatever I created, it is in the North Virginia region. I have a choice of choosing any other region and putting my resources there as well.
Okay. So actually,
Yeah,
while
so
creating
basically,
that account,
log in. Yeah, you have a choice of choosing what region you want to go.
okay. While creating that account, also like they will ask, they will ask us to specify the reason.
No, they will not specify any kind of thing. But for a new AWS account, immediately, not all regions might be
Hello.
available. Some only some regions they will restrict you to. Going forward, they will give you more access
Okay.
to more regions
Okay,
as well.
Pranav.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for this 2x2 checks to become ready, and then I'll show you on how to set up a server on this actual machine. That means we just created the machine, we not set anything up. I'll just quickly do that. Now you can see that the server has become ready. Now for connecting to the server, I have multiple choices. One of the choices, a quick choice. So basically a quick choice for this could be what? To try to connect to it via EC2 instance connect. That is a quick way of connecting to the instance. That's a browser based SSH connection. In the course, I'll be showing you on how to connect to it via Putty, which is one other software. Also how to connect to it via CLI as well. Another ways of connecting to the instance as well. So just we're going to try it with this, but it's not a completely reliable connection. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work. Let's just try it out. It's just a new feature that AWS provided for a browser-based SSH connection to your EC2 instance. As I told, basically not completely reliable. It might not work every time. So I will do what? I will basically use my Putty software to connect to it. That is my Putty software. I will be basically using that is a client to actually do SH into my instance. So before I do that, I have to do what? I have to actually convert the key pair. That means I've actually convert the key pair. The key pair that we downloaded, that is login information, is in a PEM format. Let me just load that up. So what was the name of my key pair? That was like the CoreSec demo. Let me just check it out. Now for Putty, or for using the Putty client, you actually need a private key. That is why I'm done what? I've actually converted it from PM to PPK. So basically I will just name it as CoreSec probably. Now I will do what? I will basically connect to this server. So for that, I will just open up the Putty software. And it's a free tool which you can just download in and you can start working with it. In here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually paste in the IP address of this machine. I'm going to bring up the Putty software. I'll just paste it in the host name. For SH, I'll just expand this. I'll just go to auth and I will select the CoreSec PPK. That is the converted PPK format. Let me just click on open. Let me click on yes, saying that the key is not cached in the registry. I'll just say yes. I'll just say login as EC2-user. Let me just change the appearance of this so that it is viewable for you guys. So now I'm going to do what? I'm going to set up a simple web server on this machine. How am I going to do that? I'm going to actually run a command sudo yum install httpd, that is installing Apache. Now if you're familiar with that, again from the architect perspective, nobody will ask you about these commands. That means you don't need to by heart these commands, you don't need to know any kind of code, but just creating a server is of no use. We need to set something up. That is why I'm going to install Apache on this server. So I run the command sudo yum install httpd to install the Apache package. Then I'm going to do what? I'm going to basically go to the default root directory of Apache, cd/var/www/html. I'm going to create a simple file here of index.html. Let me write some HTML. Now, since we are going to keep it language agnostic, we might have people coming in from different backgrounds. So I will just keep it as simple as it. Welcome to probably say CoreSec or CoreSec demo. Let me just click on Control X, Y and enter to save this. Now I will just start the Apache service so that we can see this change on the website or a web server. Started the Apache service. That is as simple as it. Now I'm going to do what? I'm going to copy in this IP4 public IP. I'm going to paste it in a new tab and see whether it is working for us or not. That means if I've written everything correctly, I provisioned everything correctly, this will work for me. This is how simple it is to set up a web server on the AWS cloud using the EC2 instance. So that's pretty much it, guys, from my side for this demonstration. Again, remember that this instance will be pricing or charged on a per hour basis. That means you will be charged on a per hour basis for this. But in the free tier, that means in the first 12 months of a brand new AWS account, will get up to this instance for free. You'll get it for free up to certain limits. That means the T2 micro and whatever AMI that we have gone with, it is basically free for you.